Welcome back, everyone's the Bourbon Judge. Well, we are back at it with this is a distillery that I talked about it in the past. I know I talked about it on a few different occasions, like in either live streams and or some other episodes. And I'll actually even fly in. I did the like a full episode dedicated to Corbin Cash. But I got to tell you, recently the Bourbon Judge is I'm falling in love. I am truly falling in love with Corbin Cash whiskey. Yes. All right. So when you think about, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give a overall, like a very high level, quick update as it relates to Corbin Cash. So when you think about Corbin Cash, they're based in Atwater, California. They are truly, honestly, a craft distillery. They very much like Frey Ranch, like JT Mellick, and similar to even like Starlight. They are a grain to glass distillery. So what does that mean? That means that, kind of going back for over 100 years, like those other brands I just mentioned, they were farmers for over 100 years. So farmers for many years growing crops. And in the last, like those other distilleries, in the last 10, 15 plus years, they started to distill whiskey, right? So they started to, they had to kind of invest in other, let's call it other ways of earning revenue for their farm and for their business, their family business, if you will. So they had obviously the crop, and now they're using their crops to distill whiskey. So got to give them credit for that. Hey, everyone has to diversify their business, right? Got to diversify your business and earn a little bit of extra cash. So, but they do it all, right? So grain to glass, meaning that they grow their own crops, they distill it, they age it, they bottle it, they do it all themselves, literally from start to finish. They do it all. There's no contracting out. I mean, it's literally their whiskey from their family farm that they've had over 100 years. So I love that. When you think about just craft distilleries, many of them, including as an example, Corbin Cash, obviously they have other non-whiskey related spirits. They have like your vodkas and so forth. They also even make a sweet potato liqueur, which is very interesting, by the way. I actually enjoyed it. I had a chance to try that recently at an event, and I actually really enjoyed it. That would be really good around the Thanksgiving time. So I have plans for that, by the way. But when you think about just what they're making, what we all love, you have bourbon and you have rye. So I have the half bottle of bourbon. This is the full bottle of the rye, and I'm going to dive into that. So what's different about Corbin Cash, Judge, right? So tell me, why are you falling in love with this distillery and what's unique about it? All right, so a couple of things. First and foremost, recently in the last, I think it was like 4, 6, 7 weeks ago, I had a chance to meet the owner, David Souza. David is as down to earth as you can get for, someone who owns his own company, has, obviously the farming side, has the distillery side. He is as down to earth as you can get from a master distiller and owner of this brand. The gentleman, he truly cares about his brand. He cares about the whiskey, and he cares about the quality of the whiskey itself, the bourbon and the rye. And that by itself, I respect, because a lot of people out there, they're okay with just putting out subpar products. That is not his stance. David wants to make sure that he's taking the time, the effort, even if they have to like not have a ton of production as it relates like the quantity on the market. He rather put out great quality whiskey versus putting something out to say, oh, we're putting out X number of releases per year. So I respect that, because that's not honestly the norm this day and age. So kudos to David and his team. Again, David is the master distiller as well as the owner. What I loved about David, and this is a good thing for all of us, this is one of the key reasons why I'm really excited about Corbin Cash, is the fact that their focus, they still have, when you think about from an availability standpoint, they still have, they're more regional, more like out west, like your California and the states surrounding California. But from a distribution standpoint, David was crystal clear to me. He said, Judge, I personally prefer from a distribution standpoint to work with folks like yourself, my good friends Andy and Todd over at 21090 that did a barrel pick, and then other whiskey tubers, Facebook groups, and so forth. From his perspective, he knows those are the individuals that truly love whiskey. So his goal is to get whiskey out to as many as possible, either whiskey tube groups, and or Facebook groups, folks that truly care about great quality whiskey, as opposed to just, watering whiskey down and getting it out across the US. He wants to get out to the true whiskey enthusiasts. I was really impressed by that comment, first and foremost. So that's what kind of relates to me as it relates to making sure that he's getting great quality whiskey out there, especially for all of us who love really good whiskey. That was number one. The next thing, and I have to give him credit for this one as well. He said, Judge, early on, when we start making whiskey, start tasting whiskey and so forth, he realized that sometimes it does take a little bit longer for, at least for his products, to age to X number of years before he believes that it's great quality. And he's going to hold his whiskey until it ages a little bit longer to make sure it meets the quality that he wants. He's not willing to just jeopardize and put some things out that are, let's call it, only 2-3 years old. He's waiting, no matter if it's 5-6 years, or in the case of this rye, age 9 years. That is his focus. Quality over quantity. Again, making sure he gets it out at the right time, even if he has to wait. I respect David for that. All right, let's go ahead and sip these real quick. Let me get into the bourbon first. So this is a half bottle, obviously the 375 milliliter. I reviewed this one in the past. I really like this one myself. It has a different je ne sais quoi, as they say, from a bourbon standpoint. It's slightly different than most bourbons on the market, but I really enjoy this a lot. Very nice caramel, a lot more vanilla in this. Almost has like a toasted kind of a note to it, but it's not a toasted bourbon. What I love about Corbin Cash, now we're gonna get back to what I personally love about Corbin Cash. I like their bourbons a lot, but what the judge really likes is Bourbon Judge, but I'm starting to love a lot of ryes. The Corbin Cash Rye. All right, before I dive into Corbin Cash Rye, real quick, 3 quick easy favors. Number 1, hit the like button. Number 2, drop me a comment. Have you ever tried a Corbin Cash product before? If so, was it a bourbon or a rye, and what were your thoughts? Last but not least, please make sure you also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notification each and every time I release new content. Cool? All right. So this is a single barrel, again, from my good friends Andy and Todd over at 21090. They did a single barrel. We're both patrons of each other. We support each other. And when I heard they were doing a barrel pick with them, I was like, great, because the quality of whiskey from Corbin Cash is epic. Absolutely epic. So Corbin Cash, David and team, they use something called a Merced rye. So it's a type of rye that they've grown on their farm for, again, over 100 years. And when I had this, not just this bottle here, but even when I had the original Corbin Cash Merced rye, there's something about the Merced rye, the heat, the way it impacts once it's distilled and is aging in the barrels. The longer it ages, I almost kind of get a note of, it's almost like it's similar to like a rye whiskey that is finished in like some type of like a X wine barrel, like a port or a sherry or something of that nature, because it always has like tons of fruit in it, which you really don't get that from most standard rye. And the cool thing about the Merced rye, and David in particular, it's 100% rye in the mash bill. There's no corn in there. There's no wheat. There's nothing else. It's 100% Merced rye in the mash bill. But yet, once it ages, it does typically gain those different notes of like berries and fruit and so forth. And that is how I fell into love with Corbin Cash Merced rye. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this. First and foremost, look how dark that is. I mean, even compared to the bourbon too, honestly. Look how dark this is versus the bourbon. That's like night and day. Big time, big difference. Extremely big difference. Let me get into the nose real quick. So I will say a couple things. Number 1, my gateway, and I told David this when we met in person, my gateway rise was probably, I would say probably more like Pikesville and Sagamore. Those are the 2 that made me start to really enjoy rye whiskey. But what crossed the finish line, what made me say, you know what? I'm standing up. I'm putting my hands up in the air. I am a true rye fan. What made me become a true rye fan, 100% rye, is this bad boy right here. Corbin Cash Merced Rye is absolutely some of the best rye whiskey on the market. Cheers. Let me get to the notes real quick first, though. Oh my gosh, I love it. Every single time, it just pulls you in. It's like tug of war. It's just pulling you in. And I'm on the losing side, so it keeps pulling me in. I'm not going back. Oh man, there's a ton of it's almost like a caramelized strawberry note. It's almost like a caramelized strawberry meets like a little bit of pepper, a smidge of mint, but it's a lot more raspberries, blackberries, and strawberries, but like a caramelized version of that, almost in a way, with a little bit of like brown sugar kind of like cooking in the background. Oh my gosh, this rye whiskey is so good. Shout out again, Andy and Todd. You guys did a good job with this one. I'm gonna give you credit. This is nice, very nice. Cheers, everyone. Woo! Stop it. This is so good. The second I had it, it reminded me when I first fell in love with it, when I first had the 375 milliliter bottle. This reinforced it. Now the Bourbon Judge is doing my own barrel pick with Corbin Cash. Stay tuned for more details, but it's planned for Q4. Can't wait to do a barrel pick with Corbin Cash. This is absolutely fire. And let's just say there's going to be more fire in the Bourbon Judge Patron community once we get our own barrel pick. Kudos to 1090. Cheers to Corbin Cash. Cheers to y'all. Take care, everyone. I'm loving some Corbin Cash.